Hi guys, Yora from Sharp 11 Music here, and today I will do a comparison between the Beechler Bellite, which I own, and the Eric Marienthal Retro Revival Mouthpiece, which is brand new on the market and which claims to be an improvement on the Beechler Bellite version. So I was very curious when I hit NAMM and it was super interesting. So as you can see, I bought it, I took it home. So if you're interested in this Eric Marienthal mouthpiece or the Beachler mouthpiece, or going from a Beachler to the Eric piece like I'm considering at the moment, then this is the right video for you. Keep watching. So I'll go first over the advantages and the disadvantages, as every mouthpiece has its pros and cons, and then we'll kind of weigh them towards each other, and I'll give my honest opinion about it, as I'm still undecided at this moment, so I'll share my thought process. So let me start with the Beachler. I played that for the most part of my professional saxophone career, and why I like that one is because I do like bright sounds. I like Eric Marienthal's sound, I like Michael Brecker's sound on tenor. I'm more towards the bright side of sound coloring, but at the same time I'm not that extreme in sound timbre like a David Sanborn or a Mark Rousseau. Or I dig the players, but sound-wise that's not what I'm really looking for. I just like the medium brightness of that Beachler. It really gives that. It gives a bright sound, but it has also a limit to it where it doesn't go into the real bright sound. Like a Dukov or a Lebay studio session, that are both mouthpieces that really, they play really into your face, and they are very good for pop and rock. I always felt the Beachler had really some of that, but also the dynamic range, and you could even go a bit into subtone or into a little bit of adaptive mode on its own merits. I can play kind of soft and subtony on it, while it certainly also wouldn't replace a true Meyer mouthpiece or that kind of traditional piece. It's a little bit more of a hybrid, and that's what I also liked about it. That's my two biggest pros for the Beachler. It's flexible, and I just like it in sense of sound. Every mouthpiece has also its fair amount of a bit of disadvantages, and with the Beachler, that's certainly that you really need to work for your sound. It has quite some pushback, probably because it's a very small tube you're blowing through. It also makes you work more for your sound, and also the altissimo. So the two biggest disadvantages of the Beachler are resistance and a bit the altissimos. Not too much, but a bit on the altissimo. But in the end, I always considered like resistance is not necessarily a bad thing. It really makes you work, but also it makes you activate your proper support and your diaphragm. And the altissimos, well, I like altissimos, but it's certainly not a deal breaker for me. Then we go to the Retro Revival. And one of its main goals was to break through that resistance, which was apparently also a thing for Eric on this one. And it did an amazing job at breaking that resistance. It plays so incredibly comfortable. That's a big pro for this one. I can literally just blow and it just works. It feels really comfortable. You really need a lot less work on it. Another thing which really stood out for me while trying it at NAMM, even after 20 seconds, is that the intonation is incredibly well and easy to do on it. And that's quite an unusual feat for a baffle metal mouthpiece. Mostly they are bright, but you pay a little bit of a price in terms of, because they messed with the mass inside of the mouthpiece and stuff like acoustics, it generally creates a bit of a harder intonation on itself. But this mouthpiece, it's really easy to handle in terms of intonation, and that's incredible for a high baffle mouthpiece. I also played like Dukovs and stuff like that, and that's certainly not flexible. You can really shoot people dead with it. I mean, you can nail somebody to the wall with it. It projects amazingly forward, but if you want to play soft on it, it's really hard, but this mouthpiece really can do it. And then there is the Altissimo thing. It's probably also because of the resistance, it plays amazingly easy. It just pops out like it's nothing. It's way easier than the Beachler. But first, before we really compare the pros and the cons, let's also deal first with the disadvantages of this Retro Revival mouthpiece, because there are some a bit, in my opinion. One, and that's one pretty big disadvantage in my opinion, but that's more about taste, is that it sounds a bit brighter. On a spectrum from, let's say, 0 to 100, where Paul Desmond is 0, so soft, woolly sound, to 100 on the other side of the spectrum is David Sanborn with a very bright sound. I would say the Beachler is around 75, like a really in the middle bright mouthpiece. Whereas this Retro Revival would add about 10% for me. So it would be around 85% and really way more towards that brighter attitude of a sound. This is absolutely a very subjective piece of observation, so that's my taste for the most part. Probably for you guys or for everybody else, every other saxophonist, the spectrum might be a bit different, and you might, or maybe you agree with the Desmond versus David Sanborn, but you would place the Beachler, for example, already on an 80 or an 85. Well, for me, the Beachler is really on the edge of bright, where it's still also kind of with some low frequencies, and for me, it just tips it over my edge of taste with the Retro Revival. This, in the end, that's probably the only disadvantage, but it's quite a big one, as yeah, you really want to make sure you want to play the sound, or you want to try to create the sound that you really are going for in your head. So you can see, this is why I am busy with it weeks. I tried it on gigs, I tried it on rehearsals, I tried it here, and the one day I think I will go to the Retro Revival, yes, that's it. But the next day I think, no, it's a bit too bright. I like my Beachler way more because it stands more towards my sound image in my head. That's a very honest way of how I'm at this moment flipping back and forward. But let's see, we have a few more parameters on which to decide where to go for when deciding upon a mouthpiece. And those are: comfort of playing is really important, intonation is really important, the timbre or the sound color is really important, and the flexibility until a certain degree. For the comfort of playing, the Retro Revival certainly wins. For intonation, I would say it's not that much of a big problem with the Beachler, but it's a bit better on the Retro. Maybe let's keep that to the side, because the difference is not really a big one, so not really at this moment a reason to change for me. So let's just keep it in the middle there, and it's a draw. The taste for the sound color, yeah, that's certainly the Beachler that is winning at this moment. Maybe I'll have to get used a bit more towards the Retro Revival. That's true as well. Maybe I need to give it a bit more time, but at this moment I'm still going for the Beachler. And then with flexibility, I like the sound and the subtone of the Beachler is a bit more adaptive. So that makes that I am at this point still like just a bit the Beachler is winning on the Retro Revival in terms of taste. So the end. But no. I'm still also very happy with this Retro Revival model. And let me explain why. When I went to NAMM and I tested it, I thought it's an amazing crafted mouthpiece. Really a lot of thanks to Joe Paskin and everybody who helps to develop those mouthpieces, because it's some insane beauty of craft. I really respect that because it's a quite expensive mouthpiece. At that moment I was certainly not sure that I would change, but still I felt I had to buy it, and not because I own that much money, but just because I think when you buy something, but it's also worth the money, also when it's a lot of money, for me it's not a loss of money. The thing is, like I said, I tested it in few different situations, and when you play like pop music and a big band where you play a kind of pop program, this one comes in very handy. Because sometimes you're playing long evenings, like 4 or 5 sets, like you're 4 hours on the bandstand. So it gets a bit tiring, and this one works so well also for pop, and it has less resistance, so it's also just easier to keep your sound well on it. The only thing is, when I would play with a jazz quartet with it, I think it would be a bit way too much over the edge on the other hand. Then I also play in this cool Latin band, Mambissimo big band. You might have seen some of it on the channel where we recorded Michael Mossman and stuff like that. I played a solo on the Beachler. That worked very well, but maybe there I feel like also this mouthpiece, the Retro Revival, could give me a bit more of that edge, bright edge in Latin music, where it's an appropriate way to project your sound. There it really could help me, because it's really all about intensity. I also play quite frequently in a big band where we do mostly also old school stuff, and then the Beachler is way more adaptive towards this old school sound. Sorry guys, that's how my mind works at this moment, and that's clearly why I didn't decide yet. So what can I do? One last thing I will do is I will take one of my own tunes from my recent album from the Sharp 11 Electric Band, and I'll play one of the melodies with also quite some longer melodies, so you can really listen to the timbre of the mouthpieces. Let's hear them with the same presets, the same mastering, everything the same. So here I am again after playing both tracks on both mouthpieces, and to be honest, the only thing I know sure now is, for me, the Beachler works the best for my own fusion music. I like the balance and complete spectrum a bit more. It's probably a bit smoother, a bit more of low frequencies in the balance. So that's a taste thing, of course. That being said, it's not as simple that I know won't play my Retro Revival anymore. I do like it. I see it as a kind of other version of this Beachler, just like a guitar player. They do it a lot. They adapt their guitars to the song. I won't do that to a song, but at this moment I'm still in for it to experiment within different band situations. So in the end, what I think, the Beachler is a great mouthpiece. You just have to take into account that you have to work for it. It has a bit of resistance, quite some resistance, a bit of strain when you blow through it, but it's really rewarding in terms of sound, at least to me. It's a bit harder maybe in the altissimos, but also that for me, that's something to deal with if you see it in the overall picture. The Retro Revival, it's an amazing crafted mouthpiece. It plays amazingly comfortable. It has good intonation, certainly for this kind of mouthpiece. Maybe there the only disadvantage a bit is the price is on the high side. But anyway, I think it's worth it. I think it's a high price, but it's a high quality mouthpiece as well. The same with the Beachler. I'll leave a link for the Beachler in the description if you want to get it. It's an affiliation link, you don't pay anymore, but you support the channel through it. I still think that's a very good option. It all depends on your taste, on which way you want to go. I hope that makes sense, but this is a very honest review of how the stuff just works in my head, how it's jumping back and forth between all the pros and the cons. And in the end, it's a really nuanced thing. There is no straight yes or no for one or the other. Bottom line, they're both very good mouthpieces. I like them both a lot, so I will keep on playing probably both a lot. But for my music, I'll stick with the Beachler. Thanks for watching. This can be a little bit of a long-winded video, I know. Let me know what you think, what you like the most. Maybe you have a complete different taste than I have, which is also very fine, of course. Let me know, or maybe you have some different observations. Surely let me know then, because I'm still in the process. If you like the channel and the content we make, you might want to subscribe or like this video, or everything helps. If you like the bit of music you just heard, we have an album out. The link to that one is in the description below. It's also on Spotify and all that stuff, you know, streaming, that. I'm Jori Reiners from Sharp 11 Music, and I'll hope to see you soon.